The night in Makati City had just passed through a rain shower, raindrops still clinging to the leaves along the street, the yellow lights reflecting off the wet road shimmering. The sound of a jeepney echoed from afar, blending with the rapid beat of my heart. You are at Crying Inside, a place where every family story is heard, where silent tears find their voice. If this is your first time visiting, please click subscribe and turn on notifications to join us on stories that might make you reflect on yourself. During dinner with my parents, the sound of spoons hitting plates came steadily. The smell of chicken adobo spreading through the air. My phone in my pocket gently vibrated. The screen lit up with a short but chilling message. Stand up and walk out. Don't drink the juice. And don't say a word. I slowly looked up at the calamansi juice in front of me, droplets running down the glass, the light reflecting, making it look harmless. But inside me, everything had changed. If it were you, what would you do when your own family might be trying to hurt you? My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst out of my chest. My fingers trembled slightly as I placed my hand on the shiny wooden table, eyes fixed on the glass of calamansi juice before me. Cold drops clinging to the glass rolled down, leaving a long streak on the white tablecloth. It looked completely normal, a familiar, sweet, and sour drink I had been drinking since I was a child. But just seconds ago, a message had put all my senses on alert. My mother Celia's gaze toward me was warm as always, but today carried a strange unfamiliarity hard to name. Her smile was soft as if to reassure, but her eyes didn't fully connect with me. Sitting across, my younger brother Ramon scooped more rice into his bowl, his smile shallow. That smile was like a mask, polite enough to hide something waiting to be revealed. On the table were traditional dishes I once loved, giving off familiar aromas. Glossy brown chicken adobo, golden lumpia rolls, pancit bihon noodles, mixed with vegetables and pork. The meal seemed carefully prepared to welcome me back after many months apart. Yet now all those flavors seemed to fade away. The piece of adobo in my mouth no longer tasted sweet and salty like before, but only dry and bland. The phone gently buzzed once more in the skirt pocket. I took it out and hid it under the edge of the table so no one would see. A sender's name popped up, making me pause for a moment. Ernesto. The name I hadn't heard in almost 5 years. Ernesto used to be Ramon's close friend in high school, but the two suddenly cut contact for a reason I never knew. The message on the screen was chillingly brief. Don't drink. Something was wrong. I looked up and glanced at the glass of water again. It was still pale yellow, still smelled fresh and clean. Nothing looked different just by looking at it. In that moment, my mind spun through hundreds of possible scenarios. Why was Ernesto messaging me? And more importantly, how did he know I was here, sitting in front of this glass? I pressed to call him back. The phone rang a few times before Ernesto's low, urgent voice came through. Marissa, listen carefully. Don't drink that. I asked, what's going on? Where are you? It's not important. Just know something's wrong. I glanced at Mom and Ramon. They were chatting about rebuilding the roof in Cebu, laughter mixing with the clinking of dishes. No one was paying attention to me. Please be clear. What do you mean something's wrong? I kept my voice calm but felt a chill rising inside. On the other end, Ernesto hesitated. I heard the wind blowing through the phone, then he almost whispered, Marissa, just leave there right now. But why? I asked so quietly, only I could hear. Trust me, this isn't small, and absolutely don't drink what's in the glass. The call ended. I sat still for a few seconds, feeling like I'd fallen into an empty void. Dinner went on as usual. Mom handed me another lumpia roll. Ramon talked about his new girlfriend. Everything was so peaceful that if not for that message and call, I would have thought it was just a normal family dinner. But now it wasn't. Amid the smell of adobo, the sound of cutlery, and familiar smiles, I felt an invisible distance tightening around me. I lightly touched the glass. My finger felt the thin, cold layer of condensation. The question repeated in my mind. Who? Why? What is going on? My childhood in Cebu passed by an afternoon sitting on the porch, listening to the gentle waves hitting the shore and the rattling motorcycles passing on the dirt road. My family wasn't wealthy, but those years were still warm in their own way. I was the eldest sister, which meant I had to learn to take responsibility very early. When Mom bought me a new dress, If Ramon liked it, I would give it to him and wear the old clothes for a few more years. When Dad gave me some pocket money, I always split it in half for Ramon, even though sometimes I craved a cold Halo Halo or a hot fried banana snack from the market. My parents never explicitly said I had to sacrifice, but every action and every knowing look confirmed it. To them, I helped my brother, not because I wanted to, but because it was my duty as an older sister. If Ramon ran out of money, I had to give him some. If he needed to buy books, I had to buy them. If he lost a pair of shoes, I had to take money from my savings. And gradually, I stopped thinking about saying no. When I got accepted into a university in Manila, everyone said it was the family's pride. I happily stepped into the new lecture hall, but inside I knew I had taken on another responsibility. Every month, from a small scholarship and the money I earned working at a grocery store, I sent a portion home. Some months, that money was almost equal to my rent, but I didn't dare keep any for myself. Mom always said, "My youngest son needs to focus on studying, not worry about money." And I silently accepted it. Back then, my relationship with Ramon was still quite close. He would call me to talk about school, sometimes even sending pictures of the new dishes he cooked. I thought my sacrifices meant something, that I was helping him build a better future. But I was wrong. When Ramon started university, everything began to change. The money I sent home wasn't enough anymore because he started spending more. First, it was buying a new phone, then going on trips with friends. When I reminded him, he just gave me a sheepish smile and said it was to relieve study stress. Then one day, I heard that he got involved in PBA basketball betting. At first, it was just small bets, a few hundred pesos, but the amount quickly grew. I found out when Mom called me, her voice trembling, saying she needed a temporary loan of a few tens of thousands of pesos to pay Ramon's tuition loan. At that time, I didn't know the truth yet, still trusted Mom's words and borrowed money from friends to send home. But then, a message from one of our mutual friends shocked me. He said Ramon was owing money to a loan shark group in the city. The images of the money I had painstakingly sent home suddenly turned bitter. I hadn't just supported his studies. I had unintentionally nurtured a habit of irresponsible spending. Since then, a distance grew between Ramon and me. I called less, sought less money. I tried to focus on my own work, earning enough to support myself in Manila without having to ask for extra hours. But that relationship never truly healed. When I went home to visit, I noticed Ramon's eyes no longer looked natural. He avoided looking directly at me, sometimes spoke briefly, then found a way to leave. The seeds of that rift had been there a long time, but I kept trying to paint over it, pretending that family love would overcome everything. I never expected that paint to peel away so quickly, and in such a cruel way I had never imagined. Now, sitting in front of Ramon, seeing his forced smile under the yellow kitchen light, I know I'm facing the result of years of sacrifice without ever asking, do I have the right to keep anything for myself? Celia gently tilted the glass pitcher, the cool calamansi water flowing into my glass. Each drop lightly tapped the glass like a patient tapping rhythm. I just took a bite of the adobo when she poured more, her smile unchanged but her hands never stopping, as if to make sure my glass was always full. Ramon sat slightly to my right, trying to make small talk with random questions about work, the weather, and even news about a new cafe that opened near the park. But every time I looked into his eyes, he quickly looked away, sometimes pretending to pick up food or check his phone. I started to feel that something was off, not just because of Ernesto's message, but because of the familiar signs repeating themselves. My memory took me back to an evening 2 years ago. Back then, I was at a cousin's birthday party. Everything was loud and cheerful, and I was pressured to drink a cocktail to join in the fun. I'm not good with alcohol. Just one sip made my head spin. But with the teasing laughs and urging glances, I reluctantly raised my glass. I clearly remember the burning sensation in my throat, then darkness falling over me. When I woke up, I was lying in the living room with no one around. My phone was mixed in with some clothes, the lock screen already off. A few days later, when I checked my savings account, I discovered my internet banking access had been changed. Though no money was lost right away, it took me weeks to regain control and change all my security info. When I asked, everyone said it was a technical issue and told me, "Don't worry about it." At the time, I believed them. But tonight, when Ernesto called back, his voice tense, that memory came rushing back strong. Marissa, listen to me. Ramon owes money to a loan shark group. They're putting pressure on him and your parents. They plan to use your fingerprint to withdraw money. Don't drink anything. I heard every word clearly, like an ice pick piercing my skin. I looked over at Ramon. He was telling Mom about a recent PBA basketball game, still holding his old phone, but the screen stayed lit too long, like he was waiting for a message. My mom kept nodding, listening while serving me more food, her eyes flicking down to my glass every time I raised my hand. The whole kitchen smelled of pancit bihon and braised meat, the clinking of utensils on plates sounding perfectly normal. But for me, everything became crystal clear. I was sitting in a scripted circle, and everyone in the room knew their roles by heart. I slowly swallowed the piece of meat in my mouth, watching Ernesto keep the call line open, his breath faintly echoing. "What will you do?" That question echoed in my mind, not from him, but from my rising survival instinct. Anyone watching here would probably feel suffocated with discomfort. I knew, on the outside, it looked like a normal family dinner, but inside was a carefully planned scheme. And I, even as the main character, still didn't know how I would react. I placed my hand on the glass, not to drink, but to feel the cold from the melting ice. That feeling reminded me that time was running out. Ernesto quietly said over the phone, "Marissa, listen to me. Just stand up and leave. Don't give them the chance." But leaving right now meant I'd never know what they planned to do, and I wasn't sure I was ready to miss that chance. In that moment, I realized I had to choose. Either absolute safety by leaving right away, or stay and take the risk. But in return, I'd learn the raw truth I'd long suspected. And I knew anyone listening now must be wondering, if it were them, what would they choose? I didn't stand up immediately as Ernesto advised. My hand under the table gripped the phone tightly, my palm sweaty. In my mind, two thoughts kept clashing. One shouted that I had to leave immediately to protect myself. The other whispered, this was the only chance to uncover the truth I'd doubted for years. I quietly unlocked my phone, hidden in my palm, eyes still on the plate in front of me to avoid drawing attention. First, I logged into the banking app. My fingers worked quickly to change all the security settings, from passwords to authentication methods. I switched to confirmation via a secret email no one knew about and turned on hidden recording. No icons appeared on the screen, but I knew every sound from now on would be recorded. My mother poured more calamansi juice, this time almost to the brim. I looked up and gave a slight smile, trying to appear calm. Since I was a child, I was taught that a good child is one who trusts and loves their family. But now, I wonder if that kind of love is truly worth risking my safety and future for. I lifted the glass to my lips, tilting it gently so the liquid touched my tongue. The familiar sweet and sour taste spread, but I didn't swallow. When my mother turned toward the kitchen to get more dessert, I quietly bowed my head and tilted the glass, letting most of the liquid spill onto the tablecloth. The liquid quickly soaked into the cotton fabric, leaving a dark, damp spot. I set the glass back on the table, leaving a little liquid inside to make it look like I drank most of it. A few minutes later, I pretended to yawn and said in a slightly tired voice, "I think I'm a little sunstruck. Let me rest a bit." No one objected. Ramon quickly pulled out a chair for me to stand up, and my mother nodded, saying, "Just lie down on the couch. I'll get you a pillow." I went to the living room, lying on my side on the slightly worn fabric sofa, pulling a thin blanket over me. I closed my eyes halfway, but kept my ears alert to catch every little sound. A few seconds later, I heard my mother whisper, "Is she out?" Ramon replied, "Yeah, looks like it." The sound of a chair moving lightly on the floor, then my father's low, quick voice, "Try her thumbprint." Next, I heard the phone being picked up from the table. A pause. Then my mother said, "Check the banking app." I sensed every movement around me. Someone took my hand, pressing my thumb gently on the phone's screen. A soft vibration sounded the sign the phone had been unlocked. They thought I was sound asleep, but I heard every word clearly, and that feeling was like a cold blade, slicing through my already fragile trust. The sound of swiping on the screen was faint, but clear. My mother asked, "Balance?" Ramon whispered something too quiet to hear. Then my father said, "Check if the transfer limit is enough." At that moment, I knew I was right. Every suspicion was no longer just a guess. Lying there, I felt both pain and a strange calm wash over me. Maybe because I had been mentally preparing for this moment for a long time. In the darkness behind my closed lashes, I told myself, I would let them play out the whole act, and when the curtain falls, I would be the one to keep the full record of the performance. The clicking sound of the number keys echoed right next to my ear. Each sound felt like a hammer striking my chest. Without opening my eyes, I could picture my phone screen showing the security codes, each bank item, each balance number. The sound was interrupted by Ramon's quick, tense breaths, mixed with my father whispering, "Check the transfer limit. Hurry up." A brief silence, then my mother's voice came through, clear and firm. "Just pay the debt. She'll understand later." She spoke as if this was the right thing to do, an act for my own good. That sentence wasn't loud, but it stabbed straight to the core of my heart. I heard a mother's worry in it, but also calculation and a willingness to sacrifice her daughter's trust to save another son. Ramon whispered hoarsely under pressure, "If we transfer everything, it'll be enough." "But, are we sure she won't find out?" My father cut in. "Do it quickly, don't talk so much. Only take what's needed, don't be greedy." The sound of the screen being swiped, entering account numbers, confirming the transaction, all captured perfectly by the hidden mic in my phone. I lay still, but every single word felt like a burning needle piercing my skin. This is my family, the ones who held me when I was sick, who waited for me at the bus station every time I came home. And now, they're the ones working together to take away what I've spent my whole adulthood building. No way. It has 2 layers of security, Ramon said irritably. My father sighed heavily. "Try another app." The tapping on the screen continued. My mother said again, "No need to take it all, just enough to pay them back. Everything will pass. She'll understand." I wondered, understand what? Understand that they chose to save Ramon's debt instead of respecting my boundaries? Understand that love here means accepting betrayal if it's for the family? This strange mix of twisted love and blatant betrayal made me want to jump up and confront them, yet also lie still so my heart wouldn't explode from the outrage. All the memories of my childhood, the times I held back, the money I sent home while I was still eating instant noodles, rushed back like a rewind of a film. And then, I realized, those sacrifices in their eyes were just obligations, not gifts or choices. I heard Ramon whisper, "No, you need the OTP for this." My father mumbled something I couldn't catch. Then the phone was set back on the table. The silence stretched for a few seconds, broken only by the steady spin of the ceiling fan. My mom softly said, "All right, maybe another time." Then she put the phone back where it was. I stayed still, feeling my whole body sink heavily into the chair. Inside me, a wave of emotions was rising, sadness, anger, and numbness, all at once. I knew I already had all the proof I needed. If it were you, what would you think? Would you believe they did it out of love, to protect someone in the family, or just out of selfishness, afraid of losing what they had? I didn't have an answer at that moment. All I knew was, whatever their reason, that moment when they all agreed to put my hand on the phone to unlock it, erased the last bit of trust left between me and them. I slowly opened my eyes, pretending I was just waking up from a short nap. Everyone in the living room immediately changed their expressions. My mom asked with concern, "Feeling any better?" I nodded slightly and said I needed to leave early because I had an important meeting the next morning. No one stopped me. Ramon stood and opened the door. My dad stepped back to give way. Everything went smoothly like a normal goodbye, but I knew none of us would ever be the same again. Stepping into the street, the cool night air of Makati wrapped around me. I took a deep breath to stay calm. No tears, just an emptiness and exhaustion. I took a cab straight to my small apartment, opened the door, took off my shoes, and immediately saved the audio file in 3 different places. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat staring at my computer screen, replaying every word they said over and over. The next morning, I went to the Financial Crime Support Center in downtown Makati. A white building with shiny silver letters gleaming on the glass facade. A receptionist greeted me with a gentle smile, but her eyes quickly grew serious when I said I wanted to report a potential financial fraud. They led me to a private room where I told the whole story. I'm not demanding immediate criminal charges, but I want the bank to block my family's access to any accounts under my name and put them all on a risk watch list. The staff nodded and said they would contact the bank directly to handle it urgently. I provided the recording, the security change history, and screenshots of the settings I had changed before everything happened. When I signed the report, I felt an unusual relief, like I had just built a solid wall between myself and a potential danger. A week later, I received a notice from the bank. Access from all devices linked to my account was revoked, and Celia and my father were put on a restricted transaction list related to my account. The consequences for Ramon came faster than I expected. The company where he interned in finance found out his name was on the bank's risk watch list and immediately canceled his contract. I heard the news through Ernesto. He called, his voice low. "I think you should know the truth," Ernesto began. He said the loan shark group Ramon owed money to not only threatened him but also threatened the whole family. They said they'd take the house in Cebu if the full payment wasn't made within a month. "I'm not defending them," Ernesto said, "but I think they're desperate. They picked the wrong way, but it's the way they thought would save everyone." I was silent for a long time. Part of me felt even angrier, because now I understood they not only planned to take my money, but also hid the reason, so I wouldn't have the choice to decide if I wanted to help or not. But another part felt pity because I know how terrifying it is to be backed into a corner. Still, I know sympathy doesn't mean letting them keep crossing the line. I sent Ernesto a thank you for the warning and asked him to tell the family that I needed time. A lot of time. From then on, I kept my distance. I didn't block their phone numbers, but I didn't reply to their messages either. I still sent gifts for Tet or birthdays, but didn't send money. I no longer shared details about my work or personal finances. And most importantly, I never let anyone else have access to what I've worked so hard to achieve. There are wounds, even within family, that need to be left alone to heal. And sometimes, silence is the clearest boundary. It took me many days afterward to sort through my emotions and see everything clearly. When the anger settled, I began to realize that this painful story still gave me 3 valuable lessons. The first lesson: setting safe boundaries must come first, even with family. We grow up believing family is the safest place, but the truth is personal boundaries still need to be protected, even with the closest people. No one is allowed to cross those limits, whether they claim to be doing it out of love or for the greater good. The second lesson: love without respect turns into exploitation. I've loved and helped my family for years, but when that help is seen as an obligation, it loses its original meaning. Family bonds only last when there's mutual respect, when each person recognizes the other's value and right to decide. The third lesson: managing finances and personal privacy is how you protect yourself. What I did that night, changing passwords, turning on hidden recordings, wasn't because I wanted to distrust anyone, but because I understand that one moment of carelessness can erase a lifetime of hard work. That's a skill and habit everyone should have, no matter where they live or what they do. Looking at it more broadly, I realize this story isn't just about me. In the Philippines, and many Asian countries where family is often put first, helping relatives is just expected. But that very expectation sometimes makes us forget that we also need protection. No one wants to think badly of those they love, but life always throws situations that force us to prepare for every possibility, even the hardest to accept. I'm sharing this story not to sow doubt, but to remind us that we have the right to ask questions, the right to say no, and the right to keep what belongs to us. Being prepared isn't about mistrust. It's about keeping relationships healthy and not letting love become a burden. If you're watching and have gone through something similar, or you're worried you might face this situation, I want you to know that you are not alone. Share your story, even anonymously, so we can build a safe community where everyone can listen and learn from each other. Because in the end, family isn't just where you're born. It's those who respect you, protect you, and make you feel safe. If you don't have that, you absolutely have the right to create your own family, one built on real trust and respect. After that night, I stopped receiving urgent help messages. My phone was quieter, and so was my life. I still love my family, but I love peace and freedom even more. The feelings might still be there, but the boundaries are clearer and stronger than ever. Thank you for listening to Crying Inside, where family stories are told with all the truth and emotion. If you find this story meaningful, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss stories that touch the heart and might make you reflect on yourself. Always remember, not everyone related to you will protect you, but you can always protect yourself. And sometimes, that's the best way to keep the bond of love intact.